Really excited to be with you all today. So often we talk about starting businesses or being in a business, and a business that has a purpose. Somewhere in the middle, there's a passion. Rarely do we find opportunities to talk about all three. And those three are an entrepreneur who is passionate about his pursuit, but is purpose driven as well. Today on the episode of Tee to Green Golf Podcast with Victor Patterson, we are going to talk to an entrepreneur who is not only passionate about what he's doing, but it is purpose driven. Welcome to the Tee to Greens Podcast Studios. We have with you today Vincent Whipple. Vincent is the founder and owner of Golf Ankh. Welcome to the Tee to Green Golf Podcast. I know we've been working
thank you so much. Yes.
Get you today together. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to come on and share some experiences with you and the work that you're doing, and then also thank you for the work that you're doing in the space. Like you are a voice that needs to be heard. You're a voice for oftentimes, the voiceless, those in the community who are looking to break into the golf industry that don't have that long history. This is a way for us to, I love the way that you and your team are amplifying not only what we're doing, but the opportunity. So thank you.
You're
opportunities in the golf industry. Yeah.
And we appreciate those kind words. Listen, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're at, what you're doing. Talk to us about Golf Ankh. What's going on?
Man, Golf Ankh, where performance, quality, and passion for cultural identity unite on the golf course, right? And what a better place to unite, right?
Absolutely.
We're not just we're not just a golf apparel brand, right? Anybody can put a nice logo on a polo, on a hat, and go. We are part of a movement that is breaking stereotypes, supporting communities that celebrate diversity and excellence on the course as well as off the course and beyond. Our tagline is "It's your moment," right? Being a golfer, you get over that, you have that not so good shot, you get over that next ball, and it's all about where is your mindset. And when I step up over the ball, I say to myself, it's your moment, right? This is what you've been going to the range for. This is what you've been out here. So performance, right? Golf Ankh, I literally started Golf Ankh about 20 years ago. I was a veteran just after the Gulf War. And I decided to go back to college. So that was a motivation. That was a motivation in itself to get back to school. And, at the time, I wasn't sure what I wanted to major in, but I know that I love sports. So I got my undergrad in sports administration at the University of Louisville. Mm-hmm. And serendipity, Mac, one of my favorite words. Most of the people that were in my class, most of the D1 athletes that were in my class were actually the golf team.
Nice.
Right. And so, I got to know them and they were like, hey, do you golf? I was like, not really. They were like, well, you want to come out, right? We got, we built a great relationship with many of them. They were a tad bit younger than me. So they used to, I was the OG, right? When I went to school, I was about 25, 26. I had to have a car just out of the military. So, I was situated a little differently. They could come over to the apartment, hang out. And I always like to say that my introduction to golf was atypical, especially for an African American, right? Just going to be candid with you. I started playing with guys that were already Division I players that had access to some great courses. I mean, I couldn't even hit the ball, and I'm at Valhalla in Louisville, Kentucky, right? So just that introduction to the game gave me, I believe it gave me a different thought about the game itself. But as I was introduced to the game, like most of society, I recognized that African Americans had an impact on the game, right? Sure. But it just wasn't being seen. And in fact, I didn't even know the history, right? I really didn't know the history. But there's nothing in America that we have not had a positive impact, right? With respect to this movement.
And I think that's it's a beautiful story. I think the epiphany moment is one that I think we're still coming to grips with as we consider this growing the game initiative that was birthed by the USGA, and we continue hearing about it year after year. It is born out of equity in the sport, and largely the equity piece from a historical perspective has been the African American footprint in the sport, in alignment with, with our Caucasian partners. Listen, kudos right now, and shout out to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Shout out to the University of Louisville men's
Go
golf
Cards.
team, right? Group that opened their arms. Big ups to Valhalla Golf Club, which is the host of this year's PGA Championship. So they're, going back home. And I think that's the beautiful thing about golf, V, is that as a classmate, somehow they recognize your interest and your curiosity. Conversely, you had established a relationship with them, a connection with them that allowed them to lean into you and say, hey, let's go to Valhalla, right? Let's help you start to play.
Right.
When you think about those moments, was that your introduction to the sport of golf? Or was there a period before?
Oh man. Right. So, I started playing right as Tiger was coming along.
Okay.
Right. And interesting enough, this gentleman by the name of Brian Conway, he was the person that actually introduced me to the game of golf. He was like ranked number 1 in Kentucky, and he had actually played with Tiger in the amateurs.
Okay.
And I remember him coming to class one day, and he was like, "I got these pictures. I played in the same. I played in the same tournament as Tiger." So you had this moment, right? This synergy where I'm being introduced to the game. One of the greatest players that ever played, the GOAT, is coming into his own, right? We finally have some representation on some level.
Yep.
And the moment, what really struck me about Golf Ankh is after I started hitting the ball relatively well and, and started going out on my own and meeting more people, I thought to myself, like, what brand represents that deep history of the impact of African Americans on golf, right? And then you meet more people, and another good friend of mine, he was of African, he was Nigerian. He and I started playing together, and he and I were talking, and we're like, what is it that represents us, right? The way that we view Africa and America was nothing like the experiences that I'm having, right? Those immigrants that are coming, they're in the top socioeconomic of their country, right? So they're coming and learning and going back. And so I was talking to him one day, and I was like, did you play golf? And, in Nigeria, he's like, yeah, we played all the time. It's a thing. Right. And so seeing that, and then going out. And so obviously, once you learn how to play, you have to have the appropriate apparel. So now I'm going, so now I'm going, and Nike was a thing because Tiger was with it, but that still didn't represent who I was.
Right.
Or it didn't demonstrate to others that I have a lot of love for my culture, right? A lot of and an appreciation for those that had gone forward and gave me an opportunity. Because without that golf team, I would have never had that experience. My experience would have been Munis, right? And then when I did go to Munis, I'm meeting brothers that's 70, 65, 80. Still playing golf that have played all their life. And I'm like, well, where does this happen? I was never exposed to it. So I then began to feel an obligation to, tell our story in some way, at least begin to tell our story.
And I know that we've had a number of conversations about just that. And I know how passionate the history is to you. Is there anything else that's built into that you want to share with the Tee to Green Golf podcast community that has served as an inspiration behind Golf Ankh? Because truly, we're in an era right now where golf in and of itself is being introduced through playing and other forms of education. And so we're seeing that as an inspiring piece. It sounds like what Golf Ankh is doing in many ways is introducing the same playing public to a historical piece, a piece that says the sport has always been global, but it hasn't been as recognized in the U.S.
Man, that's a great question. So, it was also. I'm just take a quick sidebar into answering your question.
Absolutely.
The other thing that really inspired me with respect to Golf Ankh was my time in the military.
Okay.
Right. So, I'm a combat veteran,
Hmm.
and
Thank
I
you for
was
your
checked.
service, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
You're welcome.
service.
You're welcome. So it was challenging coming back, right? I remember I tell people the story all the time. I'm from New York. I come back from Desert Storm. I go down on Jamaica Avenue in Queens, and it is just full of people. And I get so anxious that I remember having to go into a Burger King bathroom to collect myself.
Mhm.
Right. So recognizing that, I was feeling emotions that I wasn't necessarily accustomed to at the time, right? Because I was out in the big desert.
Mhm.
And what I found was when I got on the golf course, it was it really helped with my mental health. And I was
Yes.
being physical too, right?
Yes.
In the military, that physical training is a daily part of it. So golf, in some ways, I think that golf really helped me. I know that it really. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it's going to save my life. It gave me a space where I could be open and meet and have that camaraderie, the same thing that I had in the military. Right.
Y-
So that's just like a sort of, so when I think about where Golf Ankh is going, like mental health,
Mhm.
aside from African American representation, as we know,
Mhm.
and the numbers currently bear out, mental health among African American men in particular
Mhm.
is a significant issue. And
Mhm.
how can we, to your question, begin to introduce brothers and sisters to the game, right? How can we begin to further introduce the African diaspora to the game?
Yeah, I love that. And you know, in every episode, or at least just about every episode, I talk about these paperclip moments. And I think that was one where you talked about the anxiety, and it's well documented that those who have fought for our freedom, they haven't come back as they went. And in your case, you felt that level of anxiety, but you've recognized that the sport of golf, in its tranquility, can
Mm,
actually be a place where
yes.
you can exert some physical activity, some aggression, if you will, intentional, because the sport will win and the course will win otherwise. But it is also a place that, because of the way courses are built, it
Mm,
gives you a sense of calm and peace, and ultimately accomplishment, because it only takes one shot for you to feel
mm, takes
good
one.
and come back.
Yes, yes.
So I love that, and I appreciate the tie-in to cultural relevancy, which really goes
Hmm.
back to, we've been around this sport, whether it's John Shippen, Ted Rhodes. There are historical figures that have really been in alignment, historical African American figures that have
Right.
been in alignment with golf's evolution, particularly in the U.S. And now we're seeing that abroad. So love that, love that.
Absolutely.
We talked a little bit about this as we were getting ready for the episode, but as you're aware, you know, golf apparel is plentiful. It really is. I mean, and that's just the nature of the industry, right?
Hmm.
When you think about Golf Ankh, and certainly for our listeners, what features will distinguish Golf Ankh from the masses of options that we have today?
Yeah. Right.
Aside from the logo, and I mean, I'm
Right.
I'm trying to get the pullover, I'm trying to get the hat.
Well, we're gonna make sure. we're gonna make sure. We're gonna make sure you have all the appropriate accoutrements. We'll make
Oh,
sure that you have everything you need here in the near future. Um, you know, uh, Sustainability,
mhm.
right, and continue to having a positive impact. As I've gotten older, my kids have grown up, and looking forward to have. In fact, I have my first grandchild now. She's about a
Congratulations.
year. Emmy. Um, you know, I really begin to think about legacy too, right? Something that
Mhm.
goes beyond. And the first word that came to mind was sustainability, right? And then community, right? What is my obligation as an entrepreneur to both the community as well as sustainability? And when I say community, really thinking about that African diaspora, right? And
Mhm.
so how are we able to get that synergy together? I guess from a business model perspective, I really see Golf Ankh as a social enterprise,
Mhm.
right? So how do we also have some positive social impact? So
Mhm.
to the point that you made, the logo is around inclusion, but
Mhm.
beyond that, right, breaking stereotypes, but beyond that, what can we do as a business? What are we doing as a business to really say, hey, how do we make this thing sustainable and have a positive impact? And so we're focused in focusing to performance. How do you get to performance with sustainability? So we have been partnering throughout the African diaspora to
Mhm.
identify that supply chain that brings that sustainability from Africa to the rest of the world, right? So
Nice.
as an entrepreneur, if we're not reaching out with intention and purpose to connect to bring that synergy within that African diaspora, then how do you continue to grow the game, right? So
Right.
that's part of the that one of the first questions you asked me, and to this question in particular, how do we utilize those relationships, those collaborations, to bring sustainable materials to our apparel? So as opposed to simply focusing on performance through synthetics, we're
Right.
looking to partner. Well, we are partnering with a couple of manufacturers in Ghana to bring linen,
Mhm.
to the forefront. Um, in particular, wrinkle-free linen,
Mhm.
and then bamboo. Right. So how do
Nice.
we, and then bamboo materials, so that that we're able to recycle, bring those things back, and then have a positive impact throughout the supply chain from America back to Africa.
Yeah, I love that intentionality. And again, I think, for us here, the peak season of golf is really in alignment with the hottest weather that you have, whether you're in Philly or whether you're in Phoenix. And so having something that is light, flexible, breathable, with it being of bamboo or linen, wrinkle free, is really going to be a nice addition to this industry where it's in some cases it's hard to distinguish. So we look
Yes.
forward to that hitting the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because as I thought about bringing the brand, everybody is like, okay, that price point in terms of that
Yep.
supply chain and how important it is. And obviously, I'm an entrepreneur. I do keep that top of mind, but I think there's a way to bring a balance.
Sure.
A
Sure.
balance.
And again, as much as the sport is growing the game, it's finding a way to maintain its traditional price points. And in some cases, that staple to playing golf, and you alluded to it earlier, which is really how you look on the course. In some cases, the businesses that play in that apparel space have actually increased prices in this era where we're trying to grow the golf and conversation around the price to enter. We're seeing the counter to that. The
Right.
conversation is expensive to play, but prices still go up, and so
Hmm.
businesses seem to thrive. So I think you're spot on there that there will be a competitive price, but my guess is that you'll find that sweet spot without having to compromise.
Yeah, I think uh, golf is definitely an expensive sport, right? So
Absolutely.
how do you introduce people to the sport and allow them and not let the price be a barrier to the game?
Hmm.
And so oftentimes, especially in African American fashion, right? Everybody says, what is the luxury? What is the high end?
Right.
I want $100 for the t-shirt, right? I want $125 for the polo. For me, it's more important to ensure that there is as much representation in terms of pricing. There is as much representation out there as possible,
Yep.
and then also give the consumer some opportunities to get in at different price points. So, for example, I look at polo, right? You can get in at the polo. You can do the purple label. You can do the double LR. So, how do you
Right.
give those opportunities for for the consumer to get in at different price points. So that's really the thought that we're giving, because what I see in the market currently, and especially in terms of African American apparel, it's mostly on the high end, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
really on the high
Mm-hmm.
end because they say we want to be exclusive, so we're going to give you an exclusive price. I think that the game itself is already exclusive. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to be able. So Golf Ankh just wants you to be able to come into the game representing, right,
Right.
your performance, right? Because I'm an athlete, and most of us who play golf, we were athletes either in college or high school,
Right.
right? So performance is always our number one thing. How can we get
Right.
better?
Right.
Right? Quality is the second thing, and that quality is what we want to focus on in terms of the apparel itself. And then that will sort of dictate the price point for where someone wants to get in, right? Especially new golfers. Nobody wants to go out and spend $500 on a new set of clubs,
Correct.
right? But you want to be able to hit. So we are conscious of the price point. And then the last thing is passion, right? As we are passionate about, representation. I think if we are, then we want to help people be able to represent themselves at a price point that isn't a barrier to actually playing.
And I think that was a perfect response. And I think now we understand the target market. Let's take the moment to really
Hmm.
just highlight the vision of the business. I think we've done
Hmm.
a good job of capturing that in the questions that we've had, but want to give you this opportunity to really hit home. What is the vision of Golf Ankh, and allow this community of ours, the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, to really begin following Golf Ankh and make the investments in performance apparel?
Wonderful. Thank you for that question. The vision of Golf Ankh is to be the number one go-to brand for the African diaspora golfer. Right. So there's nowhere that I have been in the world, and I've traveled a bit,
Right.
and there's two things that I have always seen. There, no matter where I've gone in the world, I have always seen someone from the African diaspora there
Mm-hmm.
doing business.
Mm-hmm.
Not only there, but doing business, right? Whether it
Mm-hmm.
was Germany, Saudi Arabia, in Europe, we're always there doing business, right? So that was always a sense of motivation to me too, right? That we were those original pioneers,
Sure.
right? We went out and just conquered the globe. And then and in those communities, I have always seen the Ankh symbol, and the Ankh symbol is a symbol of vitality in life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I really love about the symbol is it's actually, it transcends even the African diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Greek Orthodox Church still uses the Ankh symbol in many of their ceremonies, right?
Gotcha.
It's not solely for it's not a symbol that is solely African, right? So
Right.
it goes further than that.
Right.
So that really allows us to really highlight, inclusiveness
Correct.
through
Correct.
the brand, inclusiveness through the brand.
Which is an excellent segue to the next question. You and I have talked about this growing the game initiative, and the way that the USGA is
Hmm.
describing it, and the other governing bodies in the US, the LPGA, the PGA, um, are really rallying around it is a opening of doors to communities that historically have not been a part of golf's game. And when they dial it down even further, they're specific to women and communities of color.
Hmm.
Talk to us about that initiative. What is your perspective on it? And what steps will Golf Ankh take? And I know one of them is this collaboration
Hmm.
and sponsorship that you're being involved in a month or so in the
Hmm.
Baltimore area. But just elaborate a little bit on that for the Tee to Green Golf podcast community as it relates to the Growing the Game initiative and Golf
Hmm.
Ankh.
Yeah. So in terms of the Grow the Game initiative, how is Golf Ankh supporting that? I really see Golf Ankh as a ambassador to the game,
Nice.
right? As an entity that says, "Hey, here's a way for you to start playing, right, and really feel represented,
Right. Right.
even from the beginning." And I think sometimes we we may underestimate the importance of representation, but most of us that have walked into corporate,
Mm.
you've been in that meeting where you're the only one there, and you're like, man, I don't see any representation,
Correct.
right? And just knowing that you have a brand that you can go to that can take you from the from the course all the way to the boardroom,
Correct.
still expressing yourself, because symbols matter, right?
Correct.
So that's why we were really thoughtful around using the Ankh symbol,
Mm-hmm.
right? We we really thought, as people want to begin to play the game, and much like myself, when I was getting ready to buy my apparel, I wanted to buy, number one, I wanted to support my community,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nike and Adidas and all those other ones, they have a lot of choices, a lot of opportunities, and most of them reference back to European symbols, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nike, like he brought the Greek god Nike for it. So just sort of looking at what had worked, really taking that in consideration. So number one, having a brand that a person of color that may be interested in playing golf can say, hey, I can step out on the course and I can represent, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
even seeing it, right? You're saying to yourself, you recognize the Ankh, it's in there and
Right.
it's speaking to you. And you're like, okay, well, that's something I can get behind. And I think further, sponsorships and collaborations are so important. Relationships rule the world, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's number one. So really having those strategic relationships and partnering to bring that together, much like we're doing.
Correct.
And then I said earlier, as I was stating earlier, as from a social entrepreneur perspective, like what area are we really going to support, and really focusing around mental health. And if I had to dial it down, it would be veterans mental health, and then youth mental health, right?
Yep.
In particular, youth mental health.
Yep.
And so really, how do we strategically, because we can't do it all, right? So I was talking, every time I get great ideas from a lot of different people around, like the direction that we should go. And I oftentimes think to myself, there are a lot of people that are focused to the youth, and that's important, right?
Correct.
But I was fortunate in life where I've had a couple of second chances, right? And
Yes.
so for those African American adults that are still finding their way, right?
Yep. Yep.
How can we help grow that section? So that section of the golf game. So there are a lot of African American males that that were athletes in high school and college,
Yeah.
that can't play basketball, can't play football anymore, that say, hey, I still want a sport that I can play.
Right.
Right. I still want to get out. I still want to find a way to do that. And I think by helping growing the game through these sponsorships, these strategic sponsorships, working with the 100 Black men who are already focused to youth, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and so now those, and then there's and then you and I are talking about doing a collaboration out in
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that the youth get to see
Mm-hmm.
someone that looks like them, who has
Mm-hmm.
their own brand, right? So just presence sometimes is just just more than enough. So growing the game is about collaborations for Golf Ankh. Number one, number one is bringing the representation to the table. So
Yep.
if you want to be part of that, you can. And then the second one is those strategic relationships with people that are already doing it, right? So as a golf brand, you got to keep the main thing, and the main thing
That's
is
right.
ensuring that we have that, that performance, that quality, and that passion in our apparel, and then utilizing our relationships to help further grow the game.
And as we talked about really at the start of the show, the level of intentionality that you have communicated throughout this recording, this episode, it is evident, or at least it's captured by your passion and your purpose for launching out as an entrepreneur and birthing Golf Ankh. As we get to the end of this particular episode, how can the Tee to Green Golf podcast and Tee to Green Golf podcast community support Golf Ankh beyond just this moment?
Man, again, you have the best questions I've ever had on a podcast, right? So I think first and foremost, follow us at Golf Ankh on IG. You can visit our website at www.golfankh.com. Right. And I was watching a reel the other day about Entrepreneur Reel, and it says that, I have people that see my posts but don't like them, right? And if you're really, really committed to supporting, just like us, right? Like and share, right? Let's further help amplify our mission and our vision by simply liking our posts. And then secondly, we will be launching the 1st of May with our apparel. Please come back and visit. We are in the process of launching the brand, and our focus right now is to bring awareness of who we are, what our mission is, what our vision is, and what we stand for before we even begin to say, hey, like, we don't even want you to buy unless you're on board, right?
Right.
Unless you
Right.
understand like where we're going, right? We understand that we are a niche within a niche within a niche, and we're fine with that. We want it to be organic. We want to be organic. So you can support simply by following and liking, providing us comment and feedback. You can reach us at tupinfo@golfankh.com, tupinfo@golfankh.com. Reach out to us. Let us know how we can improve. Also, in the coming months, we'll be having we'll be bringing some golfers together to get feedback on our brand, on our approach. So, take advantage of the opportunity to, to participate in those and that event as well. So just right now, just follow and like us. We're
Right.
trying to we're building our community. And so just if we could just get people to like and follow us and then support in any way that you deem is appropriate, it would be deeply appreciated.
Well, V, thank you. It's been, as it has been in the past, it's been wonderful having this conversation with you today. I think we've used this opportunity to amplify Golf Ankh, and we'll continue to support you. As I stated as the episode started today, we have an entrepreneur who clearly is demonstrating his passion, his purpose. There's intentionality, and the vision is to become global. I think we all can rally around that. The backdrop of that is we have a performance apparel business that is going to give you breathability, playability, and support your pursuit of being the best version of a golfer that you can be. And so we thank Vincent Whipple and the Golf Ankh team today for being a guest on the Tee to Green Golf podcast with Victor Patterson. And as we always say, hit it straight from Tee to Green. We are out.